Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to the new campaign trail. Now, last time we were here together, well, it's been a little bit since then, hasn't it? But in that last period of time, we hopped into the nation of Canada to go ahead and LARP in their recent elections that they had just about last year at this point. And that was fun. We did a little three-part series where we played as Mr. Mark Carney in the Liberal Party, Mr. Pierre Polivier and the Conservatives. Not pronouncing that. I assumed he was going to be out by now, and I would never have to learn how to pronounce his name properly. But it looks like the Conservatives decided to keep him, so I guess we'll see if I can get it by the time the next elections come about. And we also play as Mr. Jagmeet Singh, who I did learn how to pronounce, and go figure, as soon as I figured out how to get it right, he's no longer a leader. So it's been a bit of a hot minute since October. Late October, but still, a 4-month gap. Sorry about that. Life stuff. Didn't have time to do YouTube for a bit there, and when I did, I didn't have the energy. Even when I did have time, I didn't have the energy to do this. It's sort of a weird, a paradox, isn't it? Well, that's a paradox, John. Anyway, I wanted to hop back a little bit in time, because I've been doing a lot of modern stuff, if not modern, within the past 20, 30 years. And I was looking back at some of my old YouTube videos. And I remembered, I promised a couple like goals that I never ended up fully materializing for you guys. One of them was to hop back into a little little mod series called Red. Now, some of you have not heard that name in a while. The main dev, I think it was Tom, ended up leaving the community over some drama. Not nearly as bad as the other guy who made a 1948 mod, because that guy made it so you could lynch MLK Jr. Yeah. Bet you forgot that one too. Jesus. But I wanted to hop in and give some love to the series, because it was a solid series, regardless of the politics of the guy who made them, or the main guy behind them at least. And if nothing else, I owe you guys a like goal, which if you guys want to see 1956 Red, let's go ahead and do another like goal so I can get to that in about 2029, more likely than not. If we get 11 likes, usually I do 10, but I'm feeling a little ambitious coming back. Let's do 11. We'll go and hop in then there. But in the meanwhile, let us go ahead and check out 1952 Red. Since his victory over Henry Wallace 4 years ago, Harold Stassen has presided over a successful if tumultuous term in office. The Treaty of Hong Kong promises to build a lasting peace by splitting China down the Yangtze, and civil war in Korea has roped the U.S. into another proxy war in East Asia. Though Stassen swept into power in a program of interventionism, his willingness to send American troops marching abroad has grown increasingly unpopular. Meanwhile, since communist organizations were outlawed by the Walter Nixon Act, the passions of a House Un-American in Activities Commission appears to have manifested in the Senate form of Senator Joseph McCarthy's innumerable accusations against suspected agents of communism. In the 1950 election, President Stassen faces Arkansas governor and reformer Sid McMath, a figure largely unknown nationally who'd swept the Democratic nomination in the fifth ballot in a triumph that shocked the nation. In order to be the first Republican re-elected in over a generation, Stassen must prove to the nation that his unique brand of outsider politics can continue to successfully govern the nation, and that the second Red Scare he's helped foster is truly necessary to eliminate foreign subversions. Meanwhile, Sid McMath will be forced to define himself nationally while keeping his own party in order to surmount all odds and win the election. Let's go ahead and hit the continue. We're not going to be playing Mr. Stassen. We played him last time around, but I wanted to mix things up. Partially because I couldn't find a guide to help refresh what I'm supposed to do, and partially because I played the Republican last time. I'll mix it up with a Democrat. So we're hopping in with Mr. Sid McMath, a Democrat from the state of Arkansas. A boxer, an Eagle Scout and Marine, it seemed from a young age that Sid McMath would be at the forefront of some great venture. Upon returning home from the Pacific with 9 combat medals, McMath, then a major general, aided in the planning of the ill-fated Operation Downfall. The horrors of those whose paths to hell he planned left him embittered with Washington politics. In 1948, he won an election as an outsider to the office of the governorship of Arkansas, as the first of the famous GI tickets. Notably, McMath was one of the few major Southern figures who backed Walker's re-election, outwardly criticizing the follies of Russell's Dixiecrat revolt. Despite being unknown nationally, McMath triumphed on the 5th ballot to become the Democratic nominee for president. If he is to defeat Stassen, he must define himself on important issues, keep the party united, and rebuild the New Deal coalition. There we go. And how we're going to do that? We're going to go with the most controversial VP pick we can possibly go with. Helen Douglas, a Hollywood actress who grew to on-screen infamy for a portrayal of Hashemotep, the evil ice goddess in She. Helen G. Douglas and her husband Melvin joined the Democratic Party after Franklin Roosevelt's victory in 1932, and soon found herself mentored in public life by none other than the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. Serving for 3 terms in Congress, Douglas went on to narrowly lose the Senate race against the infamous Red Baiter Richard Nixon in 1950, who branded her a pink down to her underwear. Blah! In one of the dirtiest races in recent memory, Nixon also attacked her husband for his Jewish origin. Jesus fuck. That she was a radical liberal and that she had communist sympathies. For her part, she branded Nixon Tricky Dick, and the name stuck. No kidding. Though she lost her election, the closeness of the race was cause to worry for many Republicans nationally, and selecting her as your running mate could galvanize women voters across the nation, whilst also making a statement against McCarthy and his goons. Partially I'm doing this because there is a little achievement we can get. Red wires. There we go. That's 56. We're looking at 52. The Enchantress of Equality, as Sid McMath in 52 red, won with Helen Douglas as your running mate. So this will be a little guide. I'm also looking at a guide to get this sorted out. Let's see what we can't do. We'll do winner, normal take all. I think it's the next one that has the Sea to Shining Sea mode. If you guys remember that. Another thing spearheaded by Tom. I think that was his name, Tom. I forget. Let's take a step back and figure out what we're doing. So this is the state of America right now. You might notice coming into this, we are at a very distinct disadvantage. Stassen's looking at 456 EVs to our measly 75. We are behind in Texas. We are behind in Missouri. We are barely ahead in Tennessee. We're even losing North Carolina and South Carolina. Very Eisenhower-esque right now, what we're looking at. He's even within striking distance of Mississippi, for Pete's sake. The main issues going on right now are the Red Scare, the East Asian crises, the New Deal, the civil rights issues, and labor. Very interesting, very concerning stuff, to say the least. Well, on a January evening in the late hours of night, he sat at a table with several advisors and prominent supporters, planning on logistics of the presidential run you are soon to embark on. Eventually, the question inevitably comes up of whether or not you will simultaneously run for governorship again this year. You lean forward a bit, but what will you say? Well, I see no reason why I ought not to run again. There's no restriction against it, and there's no guarantee I'll get the nomination. Though I'm confident we'll get it, we ought to prepare an announcement on that shortly. It's a bit contentious at times, and the press loyal to C. Hamilton Moses and his goons gives you a good deal of bedlam over it. But he managed to avoid a runoff by the skin of your teeth, owing to the opposition running multiple candidates. Well, there we go. We looking a little bit better in the Deep South. We need to look at New York, New Jersey. A lot of New England seems potentially contentious. Despite being a true dark horse, you've triumphed on the fourth straight ballot with 43% of the vote, still 7% short of nomination. The endorsement on your behalf by former President Henry Walls and a bargain struck by Senators Fulbright and Taylor has thrown the convention into chaos. A well-spoken Fulbright delegate from Missouri has called for the convention to nominate Senator Paul Douglas as a compromise, and many Fulbright and Taylor delegates are eager at the opportunity. Governor, your nomination rests on this next vote. What will you do to defeat Douglas's 11th hour bid? How the Gideon's army cannibalizes their own. Taylor's support is created since I attained Wallace's endorsement, and that presents us a good opportunity to steal away enough delegates to clinch a nomination. I will personally shake hands with as many Taylor delegates who can be won over as possible, and sell myself as a new sort of progressive. Let's do it. Taylor's support would always hinge on Wallace's grip on the party, and his endorsement your way, and your subsequent leaning on that endorsement has won you just enough to put you just over the threshold. You've won the nomination, but at the cost of opening the door to Republican attacks over your perceived leftist bend. Well, let's try to swing by California. Being recommended California and Pennsylvania to visit. California is a little bit further away, so let's try to narrow that gap. You can feel the eyes and ears of the nation on you as you take the podium following your clinching of the Democratic nomination for president on the 5th ballot. The first time in history, the convention has been televised. Now countless Americans will see and hear your acceptance speech. In it, what will you say to your party and nation? Our nation can do better than the short-sighted policies of the Stassen administration and his henchmen in the Congress. They have handed our people an economy built by and for the moneyed, a failed foreign policy that sends Americans to die to quell civil strife in Korea, and dangerous division in their own house, the kind that threatens to erode the foundations of the Republic. The Republican Congress remains unpopular, but Stassen's approval ratings are nonetheless steady. Still, it's good to attack your opponent, and the liberal-conservative divide in the Republican caucus makes for plenty of fodder. Well, there we go. The convention is thrown into speculation and chaos as you announce your choice for vice president. The former congresswoman who nearly defeated Dick Nixon in the California Senate race 2 years prior, Helen Douglas. The actress-turned-politician introduces herself to the delegates in a speech highlighting the need for greater equality, but the party remains conflicted. How can you possibly justify choosing Douglas for vice president? Well, I need this here achievement, and that's primarily why we're doing this. No. Helen Douglas will make a fine vice president, and as a woman who represents our party's commitment to the equality of all God's children, I am confident I will win the woman voter in this upcoming election. Trying to mobilize the nation's women to your cause is probably the most effective way to sell the choice, but it's yet to be seen just how effective a strategy will be. Ooh, the Dixies. Congrats. Oh, dear God. Well, let's hope we can't catch up elsewhere. It's California again. The nation stunned at your unorthodox choice of running mates, the convention now turns its weird gaze to the issue of civil rights. With the progressive wing of the parties, whose loyalty you now affirmed, eager to be rid of the influence of Jim Crow, how will you address this delicate issue? Well, we need to think outside the box and raise hell in this election. I unequivocally oppose the corrupt institution of segregation and will work to enact significant civil rights legislation if elected president. You were never going to reel back the South anyway. Best double down on the issue and focus your efforts on the North and the West. Did that do it? Okay, we're catching up in New England. Narrowly got Illinois at this rate. The Upper South still might be in contention. All we really have is Arkansas right now. I can't say I'm shocked by that necessarily. Not bad, actually. Upon your return from the Pacific, you and your fellow servicemen organized a mass political campaign against established incumbents across the nation, culminating with your election as governor. Your effort inspired similar movements nationwide, which soon began to call GI tickets. Outside of Arkansas, they achieved limited success, snagging local offices and a handful of House seats. However, you command significant support among this movement. How will you use them? Though we may now captain the machinery of the Democratic Party, it is of vital importance that we continue the strategy which won us the nomination. These men will form the organization of our campaign on local level in order to ensure that our message is heard in every corner of the nation. The GI organizations are happy to assist your campaign. Their efforts will help to attract donations and to better relay your message to Americans nationwide. Let's do Pennsylvania. Though your appeal to laborers, veterans, and the rural folk as a populace was a defining factor in obtaining the Democratic nomination, your perceived lack of experience has become a serious issue as the campaign takes shape. How do you respond to charges from Stassen campaign that you lack the qualifications to be president? America is ready to turn the page on this chapter of war and hardship thrust on the people by those in power. I'm proud to represent the sort of new blood in touch with the average folk that we deserve. In spite of the advice of the DNC, continue to push a populistic approach in the coming campaign. Just don't overdo it. Any luck? Yeah, we're doing better than we were before. We're even winning in Delaware. Look at that. Since he first began making sweeping allegations against suspected communists in the government in 1950, Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy has become a household name, loathed by many and presently loved by many more. Are you in support of McCarthy? The red betas who have gripped the headlines with their vile demagoguery represent the very worst of our national character. I won't hesitate to attack them while on the trail. The Republicans will make countless attacks on you in the coming weeks, but doubling down may be the only play left to make. Yeah, probably. We're doing a lot better in California, actually, than I realized we were. Oh, we've turned it around a fair bit, I should say, rather. As his running mate to replace the deceased Arthur Vanderburg, President Stassen chose California Senator William Nowland. Nolan? Something like that. Have you any comment on Stassen's selection? Well, the beliefs of William Nowland are wildly out of step with those of the average folk. It isn't no secret that his choice was a gift of the same conservatives in Congress who are fighting tooth and nail to take away our entitlements. Nowland isn't exactly shy about his loyalty to a man as dangerous as Robert Taft. I cannot fathom the logic behind such a choice. If you're going to attack Nowland, the senator's conservative views is certainly the way to go about it, and one which will energize your base. With the campaign swinging into full gear, your advisors have worked up a campaign strategy partially inspired by that of Henry Wallace 4 years prior, while also incorporating national media and the work of loyal surrogates. Where will you hold the next major rally in your long-shot bid for the presidency? I can think of anywhere better to campaign. I think they mean nowhere better to campaign than California, where a fighting congresswoman showed the effectiveness of resilience against demagoguery and fire-poking 2 years ago, and speak to my own commitment to American liberty. It's a bold decision, and one that will draw scorn from several other prominent Southerners. California will be California will be a steep hill to climb, but should you win, it would make your path to victory all the easier. In the meanwhile, let's head over to Pennsylvania. Since its beginnings, the nationwide steel strike has delivered a serious blow to the U.S. economy during this time of war in Korea. With Stassen and his allies having rallied their supporters against the strikers, which position will you take? Well, I support our nation's laborers and stand with our union men, who've been sold short by President Stassen's flagrantly pro-big business policies. Labor voters appreciate your willingness to speak on their behalf and could prove a crucial piece of any winning electoral coalition. How are we doing? Not well in Minnesota or Wisconsin. I mean, Stassen's from Minnesota, so I guess that makes sense. Wisconsin is, McCarthy's there. I'm not shocked about that. Well, let's move on. After superb handling of negotiations at Hong Kong, your opponent, President Stassen, has seen a steady bolstering of his job approval at the latest Gallup polling. Due to this turn of events and America's involvement on the ongoing Korean Civil War, foreign policy has become a major sticking point of the campaign. Republicans charging your lack of experience on that front. Are you equipped to lead the U.S. during this time of global tumult? Well, as your commander-in-chief, and as an American who served in uniform, I understand the weight on a man's soul when you've got a platoon counting on your leadership. I attack the notion put out by the other side that don't have a clue on global issues. This would be a great rebuttal, except for the fact that Harold Stassen also served during the war. Nonetheless, Americans note your strong emphasis on renewed leadership. Let's go back to California. Helen Gahagan Douglas is certainly an inspired choice for running mate, but the American public mostly struggled to understand her selection thus far. How will you effectively utilize Douglas on the campaign trail? They said it. Well, Helen Douglas nearly won the Senate in California 2 years ago, proving the state wasn't quite the stronghold the Republicans believed it to be. We need Helen to crisscross the state and the whole West Coast, spreading the good word of our campaign. Helen Douglas is a known quantity in California despite her sex. But is America ready for a woman vice president? Though you have hitherto trudged on with your campaign, the presence of Helen Douglas is notable in the historicity of the choice. If elected, she would be the first woman vice president. Is America ready for a woman to fill such an important constitutional role? Well, yes, America is ready for a woman vice president. I see no logical reason as to why Helen could do a job any worse than any Jim or John, just because of her sex. I am confident in her ability and in the ability of any woman to do the same work as a man. You're putting all your chips on the concept that you can make up for your losses among the ultra-conservative middle class by inspiring enough women to be bold with their votes. Let's hope it pays off. Well, we're heading to Washington now. Chipping away in the west as well. Almost had Montana. Getting there in Minnesota. Well, we're pulling it together. Narrowly, but still. Though foreign affairs remain the defining issue of the campaign, Americans are still concerned with the health and well-being of their wallets, and many will dutifully seek out the economic plans of either campaign. To the less informed, how will you pitch your economic agenda? Well, in order to create more economic growth, the United States must lower taxes and stabilize wages, whilst injecting more funding into our nation's struggling education system. Taxes have been raised under Stassen to the charge of many conservatives. This is an interesting point to focus on and will establish you as further something of an independent thinker in your party. Looks like Nevada quite liked that. Looks like we're pulling ahead. Look at that. Not much of a change in the electoral map, though we're closing in on New Hampshire. Let's see. Okay. With your poll numbers still lagging behind President Stassen's, according to most pollsters, several of your campaign's advisors have devised a new plan to turn heads your way, a reinvigorated media strategy using the new medium of television. Will you accede to this most intriguing recommendation? Well, I would be proud to have the first campaign make use of television. I have many endorsers in Hollywood, and a few select ads could be enough to make a serious splash over the airwaves. Helen Douglas treks to Hollywood to lock down these endorsements. In the coming weeks, your campaign blankets the airwaves with flashy commercials starring America's favorite stars and starlets. Expect this to be a good boost for your campaign. Holy shit, look at that. How the turns table. Let's go to Pennsylvania now. We need to play some more catch-up there. You're seeking the mighty office of the presidency, and should you win it, you would be the first non-incumbent Democrat elected in 20 years. A similarly daunting effort, Stassen seeks to be the first Republican president re-elected a full second term since William McKinley a half-century ago. How will you go about competing with the president as the campaign progresses? Well, we must go on the attack if we ought to win this election. However, I will avoid criticizing Stassen directly and focus my attacks on the ineffective, radical Republican Congress. Conservatives in Congress make for easy targets, but don't you think Wells is beating this particular horse well enough already? No, I don't. We almost have Nevada. Look at that. Again, not much motion upwards yet. Or lateral movement, rather, but we're coming across. Since July 2 years ago, Korea has been consumed by the throes of a popular revolt instigated by communist insurgents. Many of your supporters in the U.S. military, or veteran or otherwise, have thus expressed frustration at the lagging state of the war's progression. To clarify, what's your position on the Korean Civil War? The concept that this magnitude of American forces ought to be shedding their blood for the stability of a dictatorship, a notion apart, is preposterous. I will bring the troops home on day one of my administration. Many of his supporters will be enthused by this stance, one particularly popular among supporters of Fulbright's and Taylor's campaigns, but is a little outside of the mainstream. Holy shit, we almost got it. Pennsylvania. For the 1948 election having featured the first presidential debate between two major party nominees for president in American history, your campaign has been eager to host a second presidential debate between yourself and Stassen. However, Stassen camp has responded to his request with a peculiar stipulation of their own, that the debate be televised. We'll accept this stipulation. Well, this works great for us, as a matter of fact. We'll accept his request, and I'll take some time off the trail in coming days to prepare for the cameras. My running mate knows a thing or two about this sort of thing. In the debate, you come off as articulate and bright, and your smile alone is sure to draw in plenty of undecideds amongst the television-owning American. Oh my god. Chat, are we actually about to do it? I think we are. We're even flipping around a bit in the upper south. We're looking at Kentucky and North Carolina. Look at that. While your running mate status as a woman has been an equally point of inspiration, intrigue, and odium for the variants of American voters, recently an apparent Republican surrogate has begun printing posters with a caricature of Douglas's husband, Melvin, with a comically outstretched nose and wearing a yarmulke over his head. The words beside him saying some vile vitriol of anti-Semitic content. How will you respond to this bigoted attack campaign? Well, I will simply reiterate my commitment to the diversity and openness of our democracy. Melvin Douglas's father came to his nation as a lowly immigrant, and his family has truly lived the American dream. This is an admirable position, one that will energize minority voters, especially in the urban north. They didn't like that in California, apparently, though. Let's swing back over there and see what's going on. Earlier this year, several road contractors hired to work on your sweeping structural reforms came out and alleged that they were forced to make donations to your prospective gubernatorial re-election bid before your decision to run for president. While the investigation into the affair has yet to produce a definitive result, the whole scandal nonetheless could prove detrimental to your campaign. How will you address this affair if questioned? Well, if pressed, I will refer back to the ongoing investigation and affirm that my administration did nothing illegal during its entire course. My goal has been to reform the nation, not to engage in the same vices of our present leadership. Luckily for you, most Americans believe you. Let's just hope that damned report doesn't release before the election. Conservatives in Congress, led by the simple ideologues Robert Taft and Charles Halleck, have fought during the course of the 81st and 82nd Congresses for a rollback of many key features of the New Deal, including Social Security and other remaining entitlements and work projects. To what extent will you attack these proposals? Franklin Roosevelt was one of the greatest presidents in our nation's history, but the New Deal itself has not been touched to the extent we presumed it would be when Stassen was elected. I can't in all reality give the New Deal anything more than a cursory mention on the trail. Our nation has far more pressing issues. Americans want the New Deal to be protected, and your supporters expect you to promise as such. A response like this only incites speculation that you are perhaps more a conservative than you've let on. And they fucking love that. Look at that. Alright, it's looking a little narrow in Oregon. Let's send an odd visit up there, see if we can't secure it. Though you lack experience broadly, you did for 2 terms serve as governor of the state of Arkansas. Whether or not you can successfully capitalize on your limited record will doubtless be a question that factors into the results of the coming election. What will you highlight about your work as governor? Well, as governor of Arkansas, my administration crafted for the children of the state the model classroom, and our example remains the pride of our state. The issue of education, the choice could not be clear between myself in the president. Education is a minor issue of the campaign, but one where your record is indeed substantial. Expect the young voter and the teacher to be drawn to your campaign. And white just might be the opening you've been waiting for to start seriously competing with Stassen's re-election bid. The Bureau of American Preservation has just busted an alleged underground communist operation in Manhattan, and among those arrested includes 72-year-old blind and deaf socialist activist Helen Keller. With calls for a pardon mounting, what statement will you make on the whole affair? Well, I join the great call across our nation for a pardon to be signed by the president for Miss Keller's behalf. The treatment of this brave woman, long suffering for freedom from earthly disability and pain, brings shame to all America. Best press on this issue, it has exposed a fundamental weakness in Stassen's own commitment to curbing communist infiltration, has made Americans see the whole debate in a new light. Stassen goes on to pardon Keller. Look at that. We are strumming along quite nicely. We'll visit California, try to cover our rears a little bit more. Richard Nixon, the fresh firebrand who 2 years ago narrowly vanquished your running mate in the Senate election that year, has recently been hit with a scandal relating to the alleged improper use of funds during his 1950 campaign. As calls for Nixon's resignation echo through the nation's press, we will make any comment about the affair as it devolves. Well, my running mate fought hard against Nixon, and this provides us a unique opportunity to chip at the Republicans' lead in this election and those down ballot. I will instruct my campaign to produce a radio ad on this subject. The ensuing ad plays some audio of Douglas's previous condemnations of Nixon and ends with a simple, "She told you so." Let's listen to the lady this time. This ad sticks with Americans, provides some much-needed credibility to your ticket in these crucial final weeks. Holy shit, yeah it does. Oh my god. Do we... Okay, 269. Is that enough to win? I think that's just enough to win. Though health goes now a significant point among the electorate, many Americans nonetheless remain uninsured. What changes, if any, will you make to our system of elected? Well, I'm proposing a significant reform to our healthcare system, providing government-funded insurance of a crippled and old collecting Social Security. This will be a major point of my campaign as we approach Election Day. The proposal is widely popular among pensioners and liberals, and Stassen struggles to produce a good comeback besides the usual deference to your alleged socialistic tendencies. We're dropping down a little bit, but we're getting there, though. I'll go a little risky. I'll drop one visit into North Carolina. See if we can't get a little bonus there. Racked with an unfriendly Congress, President Stassen has hitherto struggled past the significant housing reform he and his supporters intended. To compensate, Stassen has recently begun pushing for a federal highway plan. Do you support this proposal? Well, of course I do, but I would question the president's ability to pass this plan considering his record on the housing issue. This is a tactful way to press Stassen on the issue, but he probably could have thrown a harder punch. Oh, look at that. Look at that. With the Italian Communist Party in Italy having recently surged in the polling in the lead up to the nation's election next year, the Stassen administration has pushed for an increase in foreign aid spending in Europe via an expansion to the Atkinson plan. Dean Atkinson himself has reached out to ensure your support for the proposed change. Does he have your assurance? Well, we must establish flexibility in diplomatic affairs for the sake of my presidency. I'm sure Dean will understand. Understand he does, but that doesn't mean mend his frustrations any. You've allowed Stassen an unearned monopoly on debate over this most pressing issue. Well, we're holding on there regardless. Alright. Let's visit Arizona. Let's try Arizona. During the course of this campaign, you've not been shy about highlighting your service in the Marine Corps, but that has risen some uncomfortable questions, specifically about your role in planning the ill-fated Operation Downfall. You've been candid about your own regret about the affair, but you've also, in the past, attacked President Wallace for his apparent short-sightedness. Stassen campaign often mentioning Downfall in the recent events. How will you react? Operation Downfall was a mistake. The most destructive war could have easily been ended without the shed of American blood by use of the atom bomb. Since that information has become apparent in recent investigations, I have been honest about my own involvement and my disdain for Wallace's position in this case, and that is not something I am ashamed to reiterate. Of course, a combination of this great will depress support among Wallace's most fervent sycophants, but the average voter appreciates your honesty. And look at that. I do declare. I think we got this. 287 to 195. It's beautiful. It's been a storied campaign, and by the blessings of the Almighty, you may very well triumph in tomorrow's results. Hopeful preparation, where do you entrust the remainder of your time on the trail? Well, while though many consider it to be firm Republican territory, I have no doubt I can win the state of California. I will hold my last rally in the city of Los Angeles, and urge the people there to vote in favor of the great common good, and preservation of our cherished New Deal. Despite Stassen's perceived strength in the state, you're perceived well in California. The Los Angeles Times wonders aloud, can McMath snag it? Let's find out, huh? Okay, 266 to win. Well, Indiana, Vermont for Stassen. Georgia for the unpledged. I'm not shocked by that. Kentucky, not great to see, but what are you going to do? South Carolina. Mississippi. Okay, our first state. Rhode Island, followed by West Virginia. All about right. Illinois coming in pretty decisively for in our favor. That's a good sign. Lower New England, Arkansas. All coming across okay. We got Delaware. We got New Jersey. Sassen's still leading the popular, but that's okay. We just got New York. That's pretty huge. Missouri as well. Maine is close, which is interesting. Michigan. We might have been able to spare... probably not be able to flip that. I think New Hampshire's going to be the tightest one. North Carolina, we did lose that. But we got Pennsylvania. And here comes the West. We got Montana. Washington we got. Utah going red is a little rough. But if we get California, we should be covered. No Arizona, but we got California. So I think it's going to come down to Oregon. Holy shit, we didn't get it. Oh, we are one off. That is painful, my God. Oof. America will wake up tomorrow morning and read that nothing truly occurred in this election in terms of results. Ian Stassen both achieved a fair count of electors, but the votes of a select few southern states prevented you from victory. The fact these unpledged electors will want any votes at all means the Deep South was not happy with your campaign, and they will end up brokering some sort of agreement with Stassen. If not the president, they can rely on the House to ensure his re-election. And so after glossing the headlines, the average austere American will flip the page and smirk at the funnies, and give politics no more mind. Oh, that is brutal. What are the closest states here? Oregon. What about from there? Arizona. New Hampshire was really close. I'm a little shocked by that. North Carolina as well. Alright, let's try to speed run this next time. See if we can't get that going. Stassen. Or McMath. Douglas. Alright, so. Send an odd visit to New Hampshire. What do we got to do? Our nation can do better. Helen Douglas. Think outside the box. And then what we got? Doop. So I drop into Pennsylvania. Turn the page. Red baiters. Yep. Let's drop a visit to Arizona. California. Drop a visit there. Support the laborers. It's your commander-in-chief. North Carolina was close. Let's drop a couple visits in there. Yeah, America's ready. Another one in North Carolina. 15. What do we got? Let's get Hollywood out there. People wanting to hear Hollywood is a little bit of a novel idea. Let's do Arizona. Let's do... Gotta go on the attack. Avoid attacking Stassen. Oh, I selected the wrong one. We might want to... We'll see how much that affects us. Well, we must go on the attack if we are to win this election. I will chiefly point out Sassen's warmongering and his inability to make competent governance within his own party Congress. His general failure to fulfill the promise he made in the 48 campaign. Let's see how much that helps us. Sassen's very popular, but not invincible. It might be a good idea to knock him down a peg or two. 18. Go to Penn. Go back to California. We're ahead here, so we can focus a little elsewhere. We'll do New Hampshire. Work on education. People like schools. People like children. We join the Great Call. Do. Visit Oregon real quick. That was a tight one last time around. Work on some old people care. We're doing okay thus far. Visit Arizona. North Carolina. Yeah, we should have dropped the bomb. Do. Okay. Let's go back out west. Let's give this a shot, see what we got. A little rusty still. Hopefully that'll knock my rust off. Okay, we got all the typical states have come in yet. Okay, let's see if anything changes now from election night. Okay, we got New Hampshire. If everything else plays out the same, we'll win this. We also got North Carolina. Very good change of pace. Yeah, if we win California, which we should, we got this. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. We also got Arizona. It's close in Utah. Not as close as the polls indicated, though. Look at that. 286 to 195 to 49. Let's go to the final results. And there we go. Enchantress of Equality. Through smear and innuendo, through bewilderment and outrage, through paranoia and demagoguery, you stuck with Helen Douglas, promised for all Americans a future of progress and equality. It appears the American voter listened and defied every expectation by electing not just you to the presidency, but Helen Douglas, a woman, to the office of vice president. You can't help but be a little envious. After all, this was your win, and all the papers seem to want to talk about is the number 2. Still, in a way, this isn't just her moment, but a moment belonging to all the women of this nation. Of course, of them was expected silent deference and servitude, and on this day they have shown that they have voice and boldness. God bless the women, you think, as you step up to deliver your victory speech to a relatively small assembled group in Little Rock. There we go. Well, I thought it was fun to take a little trip down memory lane. Hopefully you all thought the same. Let's check the closest states. North Carolina by about 7,000 votes. Very tight. For, Arizona, about a little less than 2,000. Utah, about the same, about 2,400 difference between Stassen and us. Oregon, about 10,000. And New Hampshire, about 5,000 votes between us and Stassen. Well, my friends, we went ahead and did it. It appears that, well, that is that. I am going to go ahead and leave things there, but I hope you all enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you have any comments or feedback down in the comment section below, I read all comments I get and appreciate any feedback you might have for me, whether that be commentary on the strategy, any suggestions on what mod to play, a couple comments asking where have you been, dude, da-da-da. I'm okay and open to all of them. I don't know what the next mod I'm going to play is going to be anyway. I have a couple ideas for themed months that I want to give a shot, bit of a shake to. So if you have any suggestions for that, go ahead and leave in the comment section below especially. But if you like this video, like. If not, feel free to dislike, leaving comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I do appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Hit the sub button and the notification bell to keep up to date as these uploads come out. I upload weekdays and Saturdays typically. And yeah, I have a couple different links down in the description box below if you want to check those out. But until then, my friends, my name has been Mr. DB333. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye now.